Hello, I'm Sheldon Baker, Innovision Health Media Editor and host of Healthy Bytes. My guest today is Dr. Jill Carnahan, known as your functional medicine expert. She is duly board certified and is the founder and medical director of Flatiron Functional Medicine. As a survivor of breast cancer, Crohn's disease, and toxic mold illness, she brings a unique perspective to treating patients. She specializes in searching for the underlying causes of illness through cutting-edge lab testing and personalized medicine protocols. Released in 2023, Dr. Jill's best-selling book, Unexpected: Finding Resilience Through Functional Medicine, Science, and Faith, is a powerful perspective memoir about her journey. Dr. Jill, welcome to Healthy Bytes.
Thank you. Great to be here with you.
So your book, Unexpected, shares some very personal chapters of your life. What inspired you to move from surviving those experiences to teaching others how to heal through them?
Well, one of the biggest lessons, I'm in medical school, 25 years old, and I get breast cancer. And of course, like even back in the 2000s when I was diagnosed, I was one of the youngest ones ever diagnosed. And when you hear those kinds of words, whether you're a patient or physician, it really transforms your life. But if you don't take the suffering and the difficulty and find the meaning and purpose, it really kind of goes by and you lose the impact. So I found in that, obviously, I went from doctor to patient and learned a lot about that. And through that, I want to transform others' lives by just giving them meaning and purpose in the midst of whatever suffering they're going through.
Functional medicine looks deeper than symptoms alone. So how do you help patients uncover their underlying root causes of illness, their illness, especially in complex cases like mold toxicity or immune dysfunction?
Yeah, so I really think functional medicine is quite simple, not easy, but simple. And on one side, we have toxic load, and on another side, we have infectious burden. And I always feel like it takes those two things that are interplaying in a patient's life, and they may not know what's going on, for me to kind of uncover the toxic load, infectious burden, and how it's interplaying to create immune dysfunction and inflammation. And I would say at the root of 95% of my complex chronic patients, there's some combination of toxic load plus infectious burden, creating immune dysfunction. And the new term I've been using is immune resilience. I feel like getting that immune resilience, the ability for that immune system to really overcome and function in this toxic world, is the key to longevity and thriving.
You know, there seems to be a greater awareness of mold issues, mold toxicity, almost a trend, and a negative trend at that. Why do you think that that's come to the forefront so much lately?
Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it? Because 20 years ago when I started talking about mold, no one knew anything about it or knew what it was. I think there's several factors. First of all, we're seeing an increase in natural disasters where there's hurricanes or floods or incidences where literally cities are underwater. A lot of the building materials we're using are more porous, so we're using more drywall instead of like stone and brick. Back in the day, we might have had less concrete materials that weren't as porous. And so now, and we're constructing things much more quickly. Some of these buildings are being put up and their materials are sitting out, in rain and snow and things. And so we have all these factors: poor construction, quick construction, more natural disasters, and I think our immune systems are more overloaded. Think about toxic load in general. So you throw that into the mix, and I think we're having more interior mold growth that is more toxic. In the 70s, we put fungicides in paint, so we killed off all the very weak types of mold, and now we have these kind of aggressive super molds. So all that combines to create a much bigger issue, and I think more and more people are suffering from indoor air quality from mold-related illness.
Might you say that COVID helped bring it about as well?
100%. I feel like COVID was kind of an immunosuppressive disease, which really we can document the T cell function and suppression for several months afterwards, and for some people as long as a year or two. And so I think many of us, and most of us who hasn't had COVID, right? Most of us who've been exposed are living with some degree, slight or larger, of immune suppression, which also makes these toxic chemicals and exposures like mold more insidious.
So many people feel defined by their diagnosis. How does your work reframe illness as a pathway to transformation instead of limitation?
Ooh, I love that. And that goes back to my first little quote there of how we take difficulty, suffering, or illness and actually transform it to catapult us into a new way of living. I find so many of habits are related to identity, and illness is no different. So I remember a patient who had fibromyalgia, and she said like fibro patient on her license plate. And I thought she's never going to get well because she so identifies with her diagnosis, right? And I think while we have these diagnoses, they don't identify. Like I don't think of myself as a breast cancer survivor. I am, but I don't think of that. I went through this thing, I got through it and I got over it, but I don't identify with that as who I am. And when I can take a patient and help them transform their identity around illness, it's part of the healing process.
The integration of science and faith in healing is something you talk about. What does that look like in a practical clinical setting?
So great, because I talk to people of all backgrounds, all religions, and even non-types of religious at all. And the core to me is faith is really how do we deal with the inevitable uncertainty that life throws at us, right? Like we all have to deal with uncertainty, lack of control, and the commonalities of our ego. And when we can take that and integrate it and be okay and more comfortable with uncertainty, to me, that defines resilience. So whether you have a strong faith in God or none at all, you still have to figure out how to deal with uncertainty. And to me, that's the teaching of resilience.
So does your own personal faith enter into your practice?
It does. It does. So again, I treat people of all backgrounds, all types, all sizes. I do have a very strong belief in a higher power, and I pray and meditate. And I feel like often we were taught in medical school to use the left brain and the analytical mind, and I love that part of me. I'm an engineer background, bioengineer. But what I found is the power of diagnosis and connecting with the patient comes from both left and right brain, both science and faith. And some of my most powerful insights and diagnoses and clues into what's happening with a patient, they come not from the left brain, but they come from that presence of being with a patient and using the faith and the intuition. And I often feel like the divine actually guides me in my diagnosis. So for me, it's a very real part of who I am and how I show up in the world.
So for our viewers struggling right now with mysterious symptoms or feeling dismissed by conventional care, what first steps would you encourage them to take toward resilience and recovery?
Such a great question. Well, first of all, I think that hope is underestimated as a powerful tool. And when someone is sitting there and they feel like there's no answers, there's no hope, or they've tried everything, it's a really awful spot to be, and it's hard to get out of that. So the first thing is finding an advocate, whether it's a coach or functional medicine doctor or someone in between, that believes in you, that listens to you, that validates you and helps you navigate. Nowadays, there's so much information online. There's programs like yours and other things and podcasts and things that a lot of patients have the ability to go out and educate themselves. And I think that finding hope, knowing that there are answers, believing that there are answers, and then seeking them out. And all of that comes from a curiosity. So if we remain curious to say, what else is possible? What if I could overcome this? And even just asking those questions trains our subconscious to start looking for answers. So all of that is the framework in which we can start to get well.
Dr. Jill Carnahan is the author of Unexpected: Finding Resilience Through Functional Medicine, Science, and Faith. Thank you for being here today.
You're welcome.
And thanks to all of you for watching Healthy Bites.